Hi, everyone. I'm Teresa Lysam coming to you with my amazing co host, TJ Matton, and we're evolving women. I'm evolving, you're evolving, we're all evolving, and we're here to help each other evolve. So, our intention is to fill the world with uplifting messages, new perspectives, tools, resources, wellness ideas, mindset options, changing our self-belief and our limiting beliefs. And we're here to give you permission to be your best self and live your best life. So welcome to Evolving Women. And TJ, welcome. We're so glad you're here.
Hello. I'm really glad to get to be here with you.
Okay, we are back with TJ Matton. Thank you so much. In our first episode, or part one, we had this very interesting conversation around play. We heard lots of different ways of thinking about play and speaking about play, and how as adults can view play in a different way than we normally would, and that our narrowness of definition of play is very, very limited. And TJ has been kind enough to kind of expand upon that for us and allow us to see some other aspects around play and how we can notice them for ourselves, expand upon them, and bring it more into our body, into our life, into our day. So we were just talking after our first episode. TJ was saying maybe if she was working with me as a client, correct, she would have led me through what did you call it? A play break.
Yeah.
And I'm going to invite you to explain that for us because it was a fascinating concept. So please,
Yeah.
TJ.
Yeah. So I often think, I often teach about play as a wave, right? And we can use play in all different stages of the wave, right? But in theory, like we use more enjoyable play at the beginning of the wave to like kind of turn up the engagement. And like what that looked like for us was kind of conversing right before the podcast, right? Like kind of like the questions we were asking and like kind of the exploration of one another's world, right? And the beginning of the conversation. And in some ways, like we enjoyed it and we could almost feel the engagement turning up, right? Where then the conversation in our first half, the engagement and the enjoyment were both very high, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now we actually kind of want to turn the engagement down so that we facilitate like a down regulating experience, because when we leave an enjoyable experience and a deeply engaged experience, we can kind of go through a withdrawal.
Mm-hmm.
And we will start to like seek something out. And usually this will mean we try to seek out engagement again very quickly without allowing the engagement to sort of settle, and then the enjoyment sort of stays. And like this is where we can start to facilitate like more restful play. Um, and so if I were to think about like kind of a play break, you have a really strong draw towards language. Um, and so I may think about like you have a big page of notes over there, I believe. And so like I may suggest something like if we were working together, like I may suggest something like a word hunt or a word play in a way that like if you could only pick 5 words on your page, like what would they be?
Oh, you want me to go ahead and do that?
Sure, why not?
Okay, sure.
Let's see how it works.
Wave, Enjoyment. Mm, I want something positive. So, whimsical. And you said whimsicality. Love that word. That's a mouthful, but I liked it. And exploratory.
And for you, when you pick, you've picked wave, enjoyment, whimsical, whimsicality, and exploratory. And for you, if you were to notice these words, um, like one of the things that we could potentially do is that you begin to write these in a way, like, if you're still writing for a moment, like if you were to write the word wave with a wave in the body, like
Mm-hmm.
how might you currently, like, just in a play way, like what would it mean to write it from a head forward space? So go ahead and like write it down, wave, the word.
Okay.
And then do you know what a wave feels like from the ocean?
Yeah, it's yes, it is a rhythmic feeling.
Yeah. So if you were to let your like arm or body write the word, like how how does it feel to kind of allow the body to write it?
Um, yes, I can it would take on that wave kind of action, that back and forth, in and out. And I mean, what came to my mind was making the word wave really wavy, just for something fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just make a big W and then,
Hmm.
use different colors.
Hmm.
Yeah, so I could have fun just creating that wave to look like a wave.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
Absolutely. And this might be like a kind of play practice, like picking one word, right? And again, there's a there's a pattern, there's a impulse here to make it more, right? To like make it more colors, like more. And
Yeah.
This isn't wrong
Hmm.
at all. We want to facilitate here play that like allows the body to almost come to disengagement, like to shift
Hmm.
out. And so sometimes diving in with a little bit more detail does help people kind of like pull out. And what I want to be a big advocate for is that play doesn't have to be complicated, right? It doesn't have to be more. Like, and for us to notice as the impulse to want to add another layer on, is this nourishing to what the body needs in this moment of play? Or is it the pattern to want to do more?
Hmm.
Does that make sense?
Hmm. So it sounds to me like you're saying, don't add more to the wave word. Just maybe let it complete itself and wow, and settle down instead of maintaining the wave at the high point of the wave, and allow
And it
that
may,
high point to keep going.
yeah, yeah. And it may still mean that you add on more, but it doesn't mean you have an idea ahead of time,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
So, like, how might your body keep adding until it feels done,
Hmm.
right? Like, because again, like when we're working on building play flows, this second half after we've like had this like very rigorous engaged conversation is really about like, how do I let my body like enjoy the experience I just had,
Mm,
begin to take it in, right? And sometimes this does look like people like almost meditatively staying in the word wave
mm-hmm,
with more details, because it kind of brings them to that feeling of completion and closure.
mm-hmm.
And so that engagement feels right. And sometimes it's a way of picking engagement over enjoyment, if that makes sense. Like where we go on to the next thing.
I kind of understand. I'm not going
Yeah,
to say 100%
that's okay.
understand, but
Thank you
um,
for not lying.
um, but I like where you're headed, and I think what you're trying to say is allow the body to come to completion without your mind taking over
Mm-hmm.
in
Yes,
what you should be doing and what you could be doing, just with that word wave. Like, oh, I can do
yes,
this. Like, just when is it enough for your body? And if it's enough to keep on going and your body's fine with it, then give yourself permission to keep going.
absolutely.
And then when you feel that, okay, I'm complete, then you're done. And I don't know, but my mind went to my grandkids, all right?
Yeah,
And any
great.
kids in general. They're having the best time ever. They're in the moment. They're playing, they're hyped up. And then, oops, we got to go. Let's get in the car and go. Like you're ripping them out of the experience, and you're ripping them off of the top of that wave, and you're not giving them a chance to come down off of it. Like seems
I want to
almost,
highlight that and like gold star that connection you just made.
I mean,
Yes,
and I know
yes,
like it's the
yes.
word transition, like kids don't make those transitions well. Well, look what we're doing. Oh, we got to go. Come on, rip you out. And then you didn't have a chance to complete it and be with that experience and allow your body and your mind to come down from it because you were just ripped right out of it. And
Absolutely.
then parents wonder why the kids are so agitated
But I
and
truly do
upset.
think that we do this as adults also. We feel very controlled by time and
Yes,
by the
yes,
world of adulting, right?
yes,
And
yes.
so like I think that we can experience waves in all sorts of moments in our life, right? So like even in this moment, like if I decided I'm going to do a wave of drinking my drink, right?
Mm-hmm.
I feel thirst, I reach, I return,
Mm-hmm.
mm, I wave back out,
Mm.
and it settles, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a wave, right?
Yeah.
And for me, doing that engaged my kinesthetic play. Like I love
Mm-hmm.
kinesthetic play. I love to feel into movement, right? Which is part of why I pick wave, because I think we can logically think about it. We structurally know it. But
Mm-hmm.
really, so
Mm-hmm.
many of us know what wave feels like, and you
Right,
can
right.
feel it. And most people, even my people who have been afraid of water, have seen it on the videos.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah.
can hear waves, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
they're a full sensory experience,
Right, right, right.
right? So I think we think of as adulting in their adult world, like we have to have these huge spaces for play, engagement, right? This is part of what we think about turning play on and off versus like keeping it in a dimmer switch, right? Like, what would it mean for me to whimsically drink my drink, right? What would it mean for me to whimsically,
Whimsically
right?
drink my drink.
Right? Like, what would it mean for me to whimsically show up as a student,
Mm-hmm.
right? Where it's not so much a mask, unmask, but
Mm,
rather like a truer expression of ourself, a more integrated expression of ourself gets to feel alive in our life.
mm. Wow. And when you were saying, just speaking that last sentence or two, the word compartmentalize came to my mind.
Yeah.
Like we don't have to compartmentalize. This is our fun time. This is our serious time. It almost sounds like you're suggesting, why can't we just ride the wave from one into the other really gently and notice? And when we, when we're experiencing the height of that wave, and adding, sprinkling in some little whimsy in whatever we happen to be doing, and then come down from it. And it's just like, it seems like a really peaceful way of living and going through your day.
Yeah. And I want to honor that like part of what we learn as a player is to be really protective of our play, right?
Mm,
Right? Like I think we can see in kids like don't touch my like we've got to go do something, but don't touch my stuff, right?
yes, yes.
Like here's my acorn, don't lose it, right? And you're like, here's my favorite rubber band that I found on the
Yes,
walk, right? Like
yes,
they're super
yes.
protective of play. And I think that part of what we learn in re-engaging in play as an adult is that it's not always go with the flow, right? Like there is a sense of being in the flow, but also being the wave itself. Um,
Mm, mm,
where like I need to cook dinner right now, right? Like this is where I need to direct my time and energy and flow
mm-hmm,
state, right?
mm-hmm.
Where like play has a direction, right? Like sometimes play and is purposeless, and sometimes it's like, hey, let's figure out how to build a rocket that will go to the moon, right? That there's a goal and a like an aspiration to it. But what changes when we think about it being directive play versus what like in some ways whimsicality play is like a little bit less non-directive, right? When we understand directive play, like it makes space for contingencies and failures and things to not go perfectly, that it still remains in the like a goal-oriented space, but um is not entirely outcome driven, right? So for instance, for people who like are I want to run a marathon, right? Like I will always ask why you want to do that? Like, what do you think? Imagine yourself on the other side of the finish line. What do you feel about yourself? Right? I want to feel proud. I want to feel healthier. Right? So engaging people in the why is really important, because if they end up getting injured a week before the marathon, they may feel like a failure.
Mm-hmm,
They may feel like
mm-hmm.
they've disappointed themselves or others. Right?
Right.
But they can still engage in these goals of feeling healthier, more engaged in their body in the act of physical therapy, in the act of rehabilitative work. That like the goal isn't decimated because we don't reach it, like the behavior, right? So again, if we apply this to like everyday life, I got to cook dinner. Like, how could that be playful, right? Like, why do you want to cook dinner? I want to cook dinner because I need to eat, right? But also I want to like I want my family to be fed, and I want to ensure everybody's like getting healthy food, right? And it allows us, when we like kind of slow down the kind of when we name where the wave is going, we get to engage a little bit more in it, right? Again, play about is about being engaged and enjoyment, right? So if we give a direction, it allows us to more purposefully engage in something and potentially find more enjoyment in it as a result, right? Like I'm going to notice like the act of knifing, cutting is what that's called.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Okay.
so it allows us, that play is this broad experience of like whimsical, like going with the flow feeling and like staying in our flow, as well as being protective and guiding an experience as well. Like it holds both the powerlessness and the power at once.
Wow. That is a lot
Yes.
to wrap our heads around. But I do like the way you said, and again, correct me if I didn't understand right. You can name the goals, name where you want your wave to go. And if it doesn't get there the way you thought it was going to get there, it's still okay. You can still pivot and reach your goals in a different way.
Yeah.
Is that
Yeah.
what I'm understanding?
Yeah. And I think you do this really well when like in your walk, like when we talk about like how you engage in your walking, right? Like like it sounds like you have a very strong routine around that.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And that it's something you are consistently engaged in,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
right? And so that is a very kind of directive way of like,
Mm-hmm.
this is where my wave is going to go,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so like this is a part of like kind of like honoring that protectiveness of play, right? Like this is where my energy is going to go. Like this is what I want to work on. This is what I want to do. And for us to turn the enjoyment up is like, what would make walking, like how could I participate in that? And you do that a lot by noticing, right? And um so like maybe you spend a day like walking and you look for everything that reminds you of your whimsical hat,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like you spend the day walking and you see like how many weird ways can my foot touch the ground, right? Like can I focus on asymmetry in my walk? Like what would it mean to like get like could I challenge myself to walk like a weirdo for a couple steps, right? Like
Or
to
just noticing your foot touching the ground and
Mhm.
how that feels, because we don't think about that stuff. We just allow our body to do its thing and
Yeah.
don't take much notice to it. And it
Yeah.
almost sounds like asking good questions is a part of it as well.
Yeah.
What would make today's walk more fun? Or like you offered some suggestions there. Um, so I am going to ask, I mean, I love all of this. There is so much to this. I want to ask how this plays out for trauma, people experiencing and
Yeah.
working themselves through trauma or away from trauma or letting go of trauma. Like,
Yeah.
because this gets deep.
Yes. Yeah.
Is that
I mean, I am so grateful, like, and thank you for asking. Like, I love talking about this intersection because, like, I found play both in healing my own trauma and also as a therapist with people who were working through their trauma. And I think there's a deep and intimate intersection between trauma and play. And when we have trauma within the nervous system, we become very highly dependent on our protective patterns to keep us safe.
Mhm.
Trauma is really defined by the definition that I really appreciate is too much, too fast
Mm.
on the nervous system, that it can't integrate an experience. Something became so surprised us in such a way that it shocked the system.
Wow.
And when our system goes through this sort of catastrophic uncertainty, whether it is big trauma or little traumas, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
when we go through chronic uncertainties or grand uncertainty that that traumatizes the nervous system, our system wants to create certainty. So when we're in trauma, when we're operating from a trauma state in the nervous system, we are really trying to guarantee that this thing won't happen again.
Right.
And we're trying to create certainty.
Mm-hmm.
And play is about embracing uncertainty. And so play in many ways is how we heal trauma. It is finding kind of where, because play in our core play state is how we navigate uncertainty. It is how we embrace uncertainty, use it, and learn from it. And when we're traumatized, we didn't get to do that with what happened. And so we work around it versus with it. It becomes something. And so play is this place of, is the practice of healing, I think. And depending on where somebody is in their nervous system, like I have two portions of my coaching. One is called Nervous About Nothing, and nothing is in quotes, nervous about nothing. Because if we feel nervous, it's about something. And so for those who are really stuck in their nervous system, play needs to start very small in ways that help build like awareness and a recentering of self, a building of capacity. And for those who are ready for play, like ready to do expansion, right? They're like, I'm done. I hit the system. Like, I know, like, I feel ready to embrace like a new way of really living, right? And there's that energy, that activation. I have a program that I call pickup play, which is like pickup basketball. Like, yeah, let's get it going, right? Let's just do shit and see how it goes, right? I wouldn't do that with somebody who's in trauma work. I'm not going to say let's just do shit and see how it goes. Like, that's not okay for a system that is living in a trauma state. And so I feel like really great gratitude to the clients over the years who have let me explore this with them in very gentle, like calculated and careful ways. Because like our coping skills should be built out of our play states, right? Like what are we like what are you coping with? Why do you want to cope? Right? Like we're not here to just brace. Like coping skills are often about like symptom management and bracing, like how do I handle this thing? Which is really important, but eventually you can handle it, and then what? Like what are you going to do once you can handle the stress? Right? So like coping skills should feel like there is this spectrum, and this is what I think play is it's the entire spectrum of like how do I navigate where my nervous system is stuck and scared in a light and caring, enjoyable way? And how do I also let my system, so that I can let my system learn to live more freely and authentically and in connection with myself and others? And that's what play truly does, is it's a practice of being connected.
Wow.
And so I do see play very like, I really very deeply honor it as who we are meant to be.
And the power of what it is. I think we tend to diminish it.
Oh, yes.
And poo-poo it and Yeah, well, that's just a thing the kids do, whatever.
Yes.
But I mean, kids are using it appropriately. Like I keep going back to kids, like they're already ahead of the game and we're just catching up or remembering what they already know and use naturally.
Yeah.
That is that does help them connect to themselves and others. It does help them cope. It does help them, heal whatever. And it's almost like they're just doing it innately.
Yeah, because it's
And
our
it is
biology.
like driven, yeah, like you said, and it's driven out of us
It is.
as we move into adulthood.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't that way, adults would be a lot better off and a lot more resilient and a lot more, yeah. I mean, I can just see like, like the world would be such a better place if we didn't feel that play was not important
Yeah. I
and
mean,
something to grow out of.
and this is why I call my work the Playful Revolution, because I do
Mm-hmm.
think that embracing play as adults is a revolution. It is
That is true. Yeah, I love that.
it is anti-patriarchal. It is anti-hustle culture. It is embracing that like enjoyment doesn't have to have a purpose, but also like I can enjoy something so deeply and don't have to apologize for it.
Mm.
Right? Like it is like it's the spectrum of honoring our humanness. And
Wow.
um, one of the things I talked about recently in an email is how and it's in and of itself, like we've been robbed of the language to play because we think about it as a behavior, right? We think about it as something somebody does,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's not. But the reason we think about it like that is because we have a culture that wants to focus on behaviors and productivity,
Yes.
right? And wants evidence
Mm-hmm.
of these things. And play is in many ways the antithesis of this, that we can feel deeply engaged for no reason.
Mm-hmm.
And that is fine.
Wow.
Like what what's the
Whew.
problem? What's the problem?
Wow. Yeah. It's so
Like, why is
much
that
here.
bothering you?
Yeah. And we should be accepting of other people and not
Yeah.
judging them for their no reason play that they're engaged in. Does that make
Yeah.
sense? What,
Yeah. Because I
like we're
think one of the things
judging others.
and I think, yeah, one, we have this culture of judgment that like we're trained into.
Yeah. Yeah.
And also I think judgment and comparison is a way that we try to understand ourselves. Like we are extremely lonely as a culture.
Yes.
And
Yes. Yeah.
so in some ways, like judging others, I think is a way of saying like, I want this, like, I want something to feel closer to me, right? Like, why isn't this person like me?
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's like,
Mm.
it's this part of us that's like, play with me, play my
Mm-hmm.
way.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you guys just heard that. Something just fell in my, um, yeah. So I think sometimes when we judge and compare, like, this is a reflection of like our longings,
Mm.
um,
Mm.
this spaces of being unmet, um, that we're judging people for like living in a more liberated way.
Mm.
Um,
Mm.
you know,
A way that
yeah,
we
and it's
might think we would love to be, but we
yeah,
can't for whatever reason. So we're placing judgment on them
yeah,
because it's something we want for ourselves, but
yeah,
we don't have the guts or don't want to take the risk to step into that.
yeah. And the
Ooh.
other and play is deeply personal. Like we each have our own way of playing. We are each wired differently, right? And like some of us
Mm-hmm.
play really well with others. Some of us are
Mm-hmm.
fantastic at solo play. right?
Mm.
And the goal is to
Mm-hmm.
kind of like be able to kind of do a little bit of the spectrum, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But inherently, some of us will be great at solo play in our nature, and some of us will be great as collaborative players. And we want to be able to, like, run the gamut because we're humans and need to be in relationship and have flexibility. But play is unique to our personalities, right? And so we will never meet somebody who plays the exact same way as us. And this is so awesome. And I think it's such an invitation in like deepening our human relationships is like, oh man, you like to explore too? Let's go on an explorer walk together,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what are like, but then it turns out we both explore things totally differently,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, so for me, like play is like a understanding our play, understanding others people's play is like truly understanding like the depths of our human nature.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Love that. And just again, you just talking about this in these 2 episodes brings an awareness to that because we don't have that awareness. It's something we've not been taught or not talk about or yeah. So I love that you're bringing this to the forefront and I love everything that you're saying. And it seems to me like if we understood that play is personal, it's unique to us, we can play together and yet play differently. It invites in some acceptance and it being okay with other people's versions
Yeah.
of
And it
play.
encourages us, and I think it encourages us both in both directions. Like, how do we encourage differentiation,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like where we're not forcing one another to be
Yes.
the same.
Conforming. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So how do we encourage differentiation? Because the more different we are, the richer we are as a culture.
Yes. Oh, I totally
And
believe that as well.
also how do we also embrace differentiation that allows for deeper collaboration, right?
Mm.
That we're not meant to all be solo differentiated players. We're meant to bring our differences to the table and work in cohesion and
Yes. Yes.
collaboration. And so I think that play really honors a spectrum of like we're all different and we all have something to bring to the
The
table. And how
table,
do I
right.
find those people that I play well with
Mm-hmm.
and I build something beautiful with?
Mm. Love that. Wow. Whew.
And I
How
think,
can go
and I'll
ahead.
say one thing, I think this is I think also what feels really important is like when people are finding coaches, right? They're really finding playmates,
Love
right? Like,
that.
so for people listening, like think about your coaches, your teachers, the people in your world as playmates, and are they
Mm,
encouraging expansion in you? Are they
mm,
encouraging of all like evolution? Are you enjoying
mm-hmm.
learning with them? Are they letting you come to the table? um, are they a good play buddy?
Right. Are they allowing you to
That
come to
way,
the table with your own uniqueness
are
and
you? Yeah.
accepting that? Yeah. I
I
love
love when
that.
my clients tell me I got it wrong. I'm like, yes. It like lights my life up when I get it wrong because I'm like, it means that they feel safe in the
Mm,
play dynamic,
mm-hmm.
right? Like, oh, God, what a gift to be wrong. Like,
Mm.
nailed it.
Which we don't think like that in our
No.
society. If you're wrong, like, oh my God, that's like a bad thing. That's a disgrace. That's a failure. That's a whatever, all
Yeah.
those negative labels. And you're embracing it and calling it a
Yeah.
gift. So even that is a great perspective in and of
Oh my gosh,
itself,
when my
just that one
clients
little
start
piece.
like voicing that like I got it wrong, I'm like, I am like so, like I just it makes me so happy.
More, another chance to explore more and be
Yeah.
curious. And yeah, love that. What a great way to go through life,
Yeah.
you
It
know?
has been a wonderful way to shift my perspective, and I just absolutely feel such an honor then people ask me to play with them and
Mm-hmm.
let it change them.
Oh my
So
gosh. Yes. I love that as well. I love when people agree to play with me in this format. So I'm
yeah,
so grateful for you to come play with me.
yeah,
And I really do think of it as that. This is
yeah,
playful. This is play and fun
yeah,
for me. So I love that you're saying we're actually seeking playmates as we go through our lives.
yeah.
And what a great way to think of that. Ooh, I just feel it
I
feels free to me. You
Oh,
know,
I
like,
love
oh,
that for
I'm looking
you.
for a
Yeah,
soulmate or I'm looking for friends. No, I'm looking for playmates, like
yeah.
it just sounds,
And there's
yeah,
different qualities of play. Like I need a whimsical playmate, and
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I want a soul playmate, like somebody who's in it with me,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Mm,
Um,
love that.
and they all matter.
They do all matter. Whew, I've loved it, both of our episodes, both of our extended conversations. And I'd love to know how someone can tap into your playful revolution.
Yeah. So I am on Instagram at the Playful Revolution. I'm on the websites at theplayfulrevolution.com. And on my website, I've got a fun freebie that people can do. That is it's called Pick Your Player. What hell of adulthood are you stuck in right now? And it kind of takes you through a couple different courses of like how to unadult your life a little bit. And then I love my email list. My emails are fun. I send out like weekly play prompts with my email,
Mm.
with like kind of serious reflections and sometimes not serious reflections, sometimes like more interpretive dancing.
Ooh, I
Um,
love that.
so yeah, my emails are a great way for people to instigate some playfulness. My coaching packages are only two program classes or two coaching sessions at a time because I really want people to just kind of be able to hop in and engage and then come back for it.
Mm.
Um, I try to make my work really accessible, financially. Like I try to offer as much as I can through email and through Instagram, because play should be free.
Mm.
I can't let my work be free because I got to pay the bills.
Yeah, you got to
But
pay your bills.
I do believe in the abundance and trying to make my work as accessible as possible.
Hmm. Oh my gosh, love that. I'm definitely getting on your email list, so I know that for sure.
Yeah.
I
And if
who does?
anybody signs up for my email list, I love when you respond to my emails and you tell me what works. It makes me like giddy to see email responses from people that to tell me about like what prompt they picked and
And
stuff
who
like that.
doesn't want to have fun stuff come into their email, their
Hmm.
email inbox? We all want that instead of the serious stuff.
Yeah.
Um, can you invite our viewers, our listeners to a call to action that they might be able to do with all of this information? What can they take action on in the next 24 hour or the next hour as soon as they leave this episode? What's
Yeah.
one thing that you can invite them to do?
I always want people to remember that play is already alive in their life. It's either
Mm,
already being exhibited or the impulse to do so is already there. And I think staying with these concepts of engagement and enjoyment, like, can I turn down the engagement a little bit so that I can turn up and turn up the enjoyment a little bit? Can I turn down the enjoyment in a way to see if I could feel a little bit more engaged and would that actually turn them up? But remembering that like engagement and enjoyment are more dimmer switches than on-off switches, and keep the lights on. And so my call to action is thinking about these two anchors, engagement and enjoyment, and like kind of feeling into that dimmer switch in them and like giving ourselves permission to be more and less engaged by choice, be more and less infatuated and enjoy and in enjoyment by choice. That like
and I
these are both
love,
states of choice.
yeah, I love ending on that because it is a choice.
Yeah.
Sometimes we don't realize we do have choices on a moment by moment basis. And so you just invited them to make the choice
Yeah.
to play with that dimmer switch or whichever way you want to do it, up,
Yeah.
down, turn.
People have all different, like, some people pick gas flames, some people pick like shutters on their camera, some people pick, you know, like there's so many fun visuals that people get to pick.
There's
And that's one
another
of the
call to
things.
action. How do you
Yeah.
visualize your dimmer switch?
Yeah.
This,
Mine are flames.
oh,
What are yours?
cool. I don't know. I keep thinking of this for some reason,
A
but I'm
knob?
gonna have to, do something better than that. I
Yeah,
like the
mine are like
flame
the
idea.
old gas candles.
Love
The
that.
old gas candles that you could like turn with a knob.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. Oh my gosh. So much goodness, so much
Thank you
to
for letting
think
me like
about. Oh, thank
spill my
you.
love of this work out. It's such a joy to get to bring voice to this work that I care
Mm,
so deeply about. And I really
mm.
appreciate you giving me some space
And I can
to bring
tell,
my voice
yes,
out.
you are very involved in it, and you just are trying to get people educated around this concept so they can
Yeah.
really feel good and have a better life. So I
Yeah.
thank you for bringing this information to us, bringing it out into the world, and thank you for contributing to the healing of the world in general with this important work. So thank you so much, TJ.
I find
Appreciate
that
you.
really touching and I receive that with great
Oh,
gratitude. Thank you, Teresa.
Thank you so much. Thank you to everybody who's been part of this conversation and listening. We'd love to hear what you thought about it, what resonated most with you. And go check TJ out at Playful Revolution and get that freebie and get on our mailing list. Okay, my friends, thank you so
Bye,
much.
guys.
TJ, thank you.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
Teresa.